From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 10 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. America's longest lasting war is officially over tonight. The final plane departing Kabul's International Airport today, completing the U.S. withdrawal. And now the State Department is moving its diplomatic mission to Qatar. The final day of the withdrawal did not come without a threat, as overnight rockets were launched toward the airport. Those rockets, however, were shot down or failed to reach their targets. The attempted attack came one day after the U.S. conducted an airstrike against an ISIS-K vehicle filled with explosives near the airport. Officials say that strike most likely prevented a high-profile attack. The administration says more than 122,000 people have been evacuated from Afghanistan, but it's likely that around 100 Americans remain in the country. Video sent to CBS is believed to show members of the Taliban firing into the sky in celebration. Today may be the final day of the war, but the cost is one that many will never forget.
The mission that brought Osama bin Laden to a just end, along with many of his al-Qaeda co-conspirators. And it was not a cheap mission. The cost was 2,461 U.S. service members and civilians killed, and more than 20,000 who were injured.
Montana Senator Steve Daines ripped the president over the way the 20-year war was ended.
I'm disgusted with what's happened. It's outrageous. It's been a disaster.
Daines said he'll do everything he can to hold President Biden accountable. The Republican senator met with some Montana veterans today in Missoula, including several who served in Operation Enduring Freedom.
These are veterans, many of them who served in Afghanistan, and they're very, very upset, as we all should be. They're demanding accountability. Some heads need to roll, and you heard that loud and clear today from our veterans.
President Biden released a statement this afternoon praising the courage of the U.S. military veterans, diplomats, and volunteers who assisted in the airlift mission, and he expressed gratitude for the sacrifice of the 13 fallen U.S. service members who died in last week's suicide attack. The president is scheduled to address the nation tomorrow. Hurricane Ida left behind plenty of destruction in Louisiana and Mississippi. The storm killed at least 2 people in Louisiana, but the death toll is expected to rise. Jason Allen reports from Baton Rouge on the search and rescue effort.
Roofs are torn off homes in hard-hit Grand Isle, Louisiana, where about 40 people decided not to evacuate. In New Orleans, Hurricane Ida ripped apart storied structures, spilling bricks onto a car below. The scene is similar in Thibodaux, a partially collapsed building and crushed vehicles.
Yeah, it was like a bomb going off. We didn't know where it was coming from or anything. We just rushed to the back of the building when all this stuff was collapsing.
Water poured over a levee in Braithwaite. Although some smaller levees in Louisiana overtopped, none failed in the state, including in New Orleans.
The worst case scenario, it did not happen. We did not have another Katrina.
Black Hawk helicopters were among the first aircraft in the sky, searching for those in need of help.
The water just started rising, and we tried to get out, but the car just started floating.
Teams from 16 states are here.
Search and rescue missions, saving lives is the #1 priority.
Another big priority is getting the power back on. More than 1 million people are without electricity tonight, with down power lines like this common all over the state. All of New Orleans is in the dark. This is one reason why. Ida crushed this transmission line that crosses the Mississippi River in the city. The power outages are hitting hospitals hard. Children's Hospital of New Orleans is running on generator power.
We have adequate fuel for a number of days to come. And, the longer this stretches on, the more concerning it could become for us.
More than 25,000 linemen from 22 states are working to restore the power, with more on the way. But it's a repair job that could take weeks. Jason Allen, CBS News, Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Chief Meteorologist Ed McIntosh joining us now. And there's another hurricane you're watching that could actually affect our weather.
That's right. Yeah, this one, as we take a look at the map, we'll show you where we have the remnants of Hurricane Ida now moving up as it continues to move up through the deep south. But also Nora. This is a Pacific hurricane. This one came on shore into Mexico, but the flow from that will continue to move up our direction. So here's the setup as we start getting into the next few days. A lot of that moisture will move up Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah. Could see some really heavy rain out of that by the time we start looking to the middle of the week. And some of that moisture could skim past southeastern Montana. By the time we get into Friday, you mix that in with some Pacific moisture starting to come into the picture, and all of a sudden we could be looking at some heavier rain out of that system. A lot of weather between now and then. We'll take a closer look at our forecast, coming up with the details in a few minutes.
At the state's largest hospital, the Billings Clinic team is caring for the highest COVID patient influx tonight. 44 people battling the virus, 16 in ICU, with half of those on ventilators. With those grim numbers, for the second time in less than 2 years, the Billings Clinic is set to bring in the National Guard to ease staffing shortages, and they're postponing non-medically necessary procedures. Q2's Brandon Warren takes us inside the hospital to show us what caregivers are dealing with.
Billings Clinic is seeing their largest number of COVID-19 hospitalizations since December, and now they're prepping for even more.
We are actively trying to expand our capacity, physical spaces where we can accommodate more patients. Although we're able to get more space, one of our biggest challenge is that having enough healthcare providers and workers, such as nurses and ancillary staff, to be able to man those beds.
An increase in patients means more work for the hospital staff, which makes it even harder for the hospital to take in future patients.
Because of our higher volume of patients in the hospital and these patients all require substantially more care and resources, they made a very huge impact on our capacity in the hospitals.
Along with expanding patient and testing capacity, Billings Clinic is also gearing up to start administering booster shots for individuals who have received the COVID-19 vaccine.
And finally, we are looking to expand the September 20th date of offering vaccinations to those who have received the mRNA COVID-19 vaccine to get their additional dose.
The hospital says the staff are doing excellent work and wants to send a huge thank you to them. In Billings, Brandon Warren, MTN News.
The hospital currently has 8 patients on ventilators. All 8 are unvaccinated. Across the state, 223 Montanans are hospitalized, with 168 patients coming in just the last 7 days. Now, Ashley Loring Heavy Runner disappeared from the Blackfeet Reservation back in 2017. Multiple rewards have been offered for information about her. Walks have been organized to bring awareness, and political leaders have even spoken out about the situation. Well, now an investigative podcast is focusing on her case. MTN's Shannon Newth spoke with the host of Up Vanished.
It's been more than 4 years since Ashley Loring Heavy Runner disappeared from the Blackfeet Reservation. Multiple rewards have been offered for information about Ashley. Walks have been organized to bring awareness, and political leaders have even spoken about the situation. Now, an investigative podcast is focusing on her case.
4 years of unanswered questions, of searching and wondering, where is Ashley Loring Heavy Runner? An investigative podcast called Up and Vanished attempts to answer those questions.
How did you get to know about her case? Why did you pick Ashley for this season?
I've noticed over the years, just doing true crime, we get tons of emails, different cases all over the country, honestly, all over the world. And one of the most underreported, undercovered cases out there are missing Indigenous women. And it's a huge epidemic that was brought to my attention. And Up and Vanished is a huge platform, and there's millions of listeners. And it only felt right to be able to highlight a case that is largely underreported, so we can actually bring a spotlight to it and make a difference no matter what.
All we need is Ashley to come back.
Lindsay and his crew have spent months flying back and forth from their home in Georgia to Montana. The reception to his presence and investigation has been mixed.
I mean, I think every time someone is poking around a cold case, people are going to be up in arms about something. It's a very sensitive subject. People are hurt. People want answers. But for the most part, the Browning community has met me with open arms. I've made a lot of really cool friends, met a lot of really nice people, but there's also been some people who don't want me to be there and have even threatened me to leave. So, but to me, it's no surprise.
If Ashley is meant to be found, then there ain't anything in the world that's ever going to stop that.
Lindsay's immersed himself in Ashley's case, talking with many people connected to Ashley.
From your perspective and where you're at right now in your investigation, what do you feel like it'll take to solve Ashley's case?
It's going to take somebody coming forward and saying what they know happened, admitting that they did something or that they saw something. That's what it's going to take.
Lindsay and his crew are offering a $50,000 reward for information that leads to answers in Ashley's case. Up and Vanish Season 3 launches Wednesday, September 1st, wherever you get your podcasts.
I think that a lot of people in the community fear retaliation, and a substantial amount of money like this can hopefully encourage somebody to have the nerve to come forward and say what they know.
The real justice is just finding her.
Up and Vanish Season 3 launches Wednesday, September 1st, wherever you get your podcasts. In Great Falls, Shannon Newth, MTN News.
Back here in Billings, MSUB might be bucking the national trend of decreased international student enrollment this year. Q2's Mitch Legge brings us a look at the international student program, and here's from one student on the last leg of his experience in the U.S.
After a tumultuous year learning through the COVID-19 pandemic, international students from all across the globe are coming back to Montana State University in Billings this week. From countries in the continents of Europe, Asia, South America, and Africa, about 44 international students are expected to be enrolled at MSUB this year. The total number of students is up about 20 to 30% over 2019, according to Executive Director of the program, Paul Foster. He said he's cautiously optimistic Billings might be bucking the national trend of a decrease in international students.
It's an ever-changing game, but I think we're also a smaller university in a smaller city. So some of those trends tend to wipe us out in one year, but then next year we're back. So I hate to say that we're doing really well because that might jinx us, but standing here right now, we're cautiously optimistic.
Still, those 44 students have yet to arrive at the MSUB dorms when Foster will officially mark them present. Nationally, foreign enrollment in U.S. schools dropped 20% in 2020, according to the U.S. Immigration and Customs Department. Foster said 2020 was a tough year for the MSUB international program during the pandemic, with few students either coming into or going out of the country to study. Marvin Poutou, a 24-year-old business marketing student from Paris, France, stuck it out through the pandemic. The MSUB soccer player only managed to get one trip back home since first arriving in 2018.
It was really challenging, but somehow I managed to stay here and trying to be as much as positive as I could.
Poutou plans to graduate at the end of the semester and take his valuable degree in fluent English speaking back to France for at least a time before deciding what he wants to do next. Poutou advocated for international travel or study abroad opportunities. He said they can be life-changing experiences.
Something positive happened to you. You just see things differently. I'm glad that I came in America. The life experience, learning about yourself, learning about other people, interact and make connection with people that you never thought that you would make connection with. So.
In Billings, Mitch Legge, MTN News.
After a 3-day orientation, the international students are off to classes with the rest of the MSUB student body next Wednesday. Still to come on the MTN 10 o'clock news here on Q2. Catch of the day, we're going to meet one Billings teen who's already making a name for himself with the pros by reeling in some big ones. That story coming up next.